Imagine it's March 1922. You're a farmer in rural Bavaria, Germany, about 40 miles north of Munich. You're surrounded by nothing but fields and forest. Snow still clings to the ground. One morning you walk outside and you notice something strange in the fresh powder.
Footprints leading from the dark edge of the forest straight to your farmhouse.
And here's where your heart stops, or, you stroke out. There is no footprints that are leading back.
Which means someone walked toward your home and then they never left.
And guess what, Kathryn?
What?
Your keys have gone missing?
Well, that's normal.
Yeah, you've heard footsteps in the attic.
Less normal?
A newspaper appeared in your kitchen that no one in your family bought.
Definitely not normal.
Your maid? She quit 6 months ago because she said the house was haunted.
I want a maid.
And now this. At this point, if a fiery hole opened up in the middle of your living room, I don't think you could be surprised.
Right. And do you call the police? Search the property? Accept the neighbor's offer of a gun? I mean, I'd accept the offer.
I would accept the offer. I would accept the offer for 2 guns. I would dual wield them like it was GoldenEye. No, but guess what? You don't do any of these things, Kathryn. The answer is you do nothing because you're Andreas Gruber, no relation to Hans, and you are a stubborn 63-year-old Bavarian farmer, and in 3 days, you and everyone in your household will be beaten to death with your own farm tool.
Oh.
How's that for an opening? Are we not entertained?
I mean, I'm a little bit horrified, but that's cool. But the killer, well, they'll stay for days, sleeping in your beds, eating your food, feeding your animals, living among your bodies like it's just another Tuesday. And they're playing the darkest version of Goldilocks ever created.
But instead of lukewarm porridge, we got warm blood on the floor. Why don't you come and see? Why don't you stay a while? The fireplace is still warm and the roast is on the fire. There's still work to be done, but tonight, there's only quiet. Finally, blessed quiet. So sit and relax, and maybe, just maybe, you'll never want to leave. I just did a Stephen King thing.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass. We'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know.
Welcome to Mugshot Mysteries. I'm Gabriel.
And I'm Kathryn. And today we're going back over 100 years and across the Atlantic to cover what many consider the most disturbing unsolved murder case in German history.
The Hinterkaifeck murders. 6 people, 0 arrest, a shamed police station, at least they should be, and over a century of speculation. Is the truth out there? Does this killer still run free, at least in our hearts and in our spirits, and maybe an off-strip Laughlin casino? Because he would be super old is what I mean. That's a joke. Slot machine, 100-year-olds.
Yeah, I got it. I think our listeners got it. But fair warning, and this is truly a fair warning, this one is dark. Like, we do true crime, but this case genuinely creeps us out. But we're going to do our thing. We'll find the moments of levity where we can, because honestly, if we don't laugh occasionally, we'll cry and then just be depressed. And then comes the chocolate. And have you ever made an ice cream sandwich with 2 Eggos?
Oh, too many times to count.
Yeah.
It's great. No regrets. So this dark humor is our coping mechanism. So just assume that our therapists totally support this.
Well, maybe we won't tell them about this one, though. Just keep it like a little secret between friends. And don't worry, you guys. That bump you've been hearing in the attic, it's just us watching you. It's no big deal.
Wow. It's creepy, Kathryn.
Let's get into it. Before we get to the murder part, which, spoiler alert, it's coming, we do need to talk about this family because the Grubers were a lot.
Which is like saying a bridge collapse is a really bad start to your day. It's an understatement, I mean. So let me set the scene for you. Hinterkaifeck wasn't even a proper town. The name literally translates to behind Kaifeck, which is a little farmstead about a kilometer away, which is 0.62 miles for us imperialists, and it's a kilometer away from Kaifeck, which itself is super tiny. This place is isolated. We are talking about deep in Bavarian countryside. It's surrounded by forests. It's surrounded by fields. The nearest neighbors can't even see the farm.
Kind of like that, though.
Well, there's a certain kind of person that lives here. So have you or anyone you love met somebody from Alaska?
Oh, yes, actually, I have. And they are definitely not looking to sign up for a store rewards card. That's for damn sure. Off radar, no coupons. So this is a perfect horror movie setup.
Absolutely textbook. The library isn't as textbook as this. So the household consisted of 6 people. At the head was Andreas Gruber, age 63. He's the patriarch, the farmer, and by all accounts, he was, how do we try to put this nicely?
Oh, I know. A terrible person, a disgrace, a loon.
Yeah. Okay, so that works. I don't actually think we need to be nice. So let's just, we'll stop the civility right here with him because honestly, fuck this guy. And you'll see soon before you say that I'm being crass. And you might also instinctively wish you had no ears because Andreas was described by neighbors as reclusive, irascible, word of the day, and controlling. He had a reputation for being difficult and violent, all great combinations. His wife, Kazilia, she's 72 years old, so a little older. She mostly kept to herself. She handled the household duties. And I like to think that he sometimes called her Zelia for short. Then when he was mad at her, he'd be like, "Oh, Godzilla, stop stomping and roaring around."
Okay, wow. That was a little bit of a stretch. I chuckled, internally you couldn't see it, but I was definitely chuckling. Love a Godzilla joke. Anyway, then there was their daughter, Victoria Gabriel. She was 35, widowed, and her husband, Carl Gabriel, had died in World War I in 1914. Well, died, air quotes. And we'll come back to that because it might be that we've got a little bit of a Kaiser Soze thing going on. Now, Victoria had moved back in with her parents after Carl's death, and she had 2 children, which this is where it starts to get bad, and then it just doesn't really stop.
So that's an understatement because they had a 7-year-old daughter, also named Casilia, after her grandmother, and then there's a 2-year-old involved, and his name is Joseph. I am not happy about this kid part at all, obviously, because this is a tragedy. And while I get like life is sacred and all lives matter, the fact of the matter is at a certain age, you have lived many more days than you deserve. Sorry, I know that sounds depressing. If you can look back and maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do the things that you wanted to do because we all have life, right? 401k and kids and soccer games and responsibility. That can be considered, I think, a little tragic. But in 1 year, you can get a lot accomplished, right? A day is long, a year is really long, but 10 years in this society and in this culture, I mean, that's gone in the blink of an eye because we're not really doing the things that we want to do. Now, the point is, these kids did not have a chance. We've had a chance. I've had a chance. Dude, I've had more chances than I can even count. And a chance is all you can hope for. And when you don't get that chance, that's a tragedy. When life is taken, I get it. It should be very sad to all those people around you in your small little sphere of influence. But to everyone else, that can't be considered a tragedy. Those kids were a tragedy from afar, from the past. They speak still, and they tell us of lives that are way too short.
Okay, I did not see that tangent coming from you, but I liked it. Didn't see it coming.
I did not see that coming. Not all of it.
But it's valid,
20%.
especially as we get into the story. Keep that in mind. I mean, hey, you guys, you come for the crime, but you save for the existentialism. Well, whether or not you think it is tragic, rounding out the household was their brand new maid, Maria Baumgartner. She was 44 years old and had arrived at the farm on March 31st, 1922 for her first day at work.
And for Maria Baumgartner, this was a real bomber of a day because it was also her last day of work, also her last day alive. She literally walked into a murder.
Yeah, wow, worst first day ever. And that's saying something because I once started a job where in my first week of being the team leader, I basically had to barricade our whole store at Hallmark because there was an active shooter situation. Yeah.
Okay, well, you can't leave it there. So please tell us more. I've heard most of this story.
I mean, too long didn't read Cliff Notes version. my store happened to be on the side of the mall where, our armored trucks would do their deliveries. And that day, now what I can't remember is because it's been so many years, was if it was still a movie theater or if it had converted to the church yet. But either way, the armored vehicle had done their business at that store right next to mine. Well, the next thing I know, police have entered my store and their guns are drawn. And I'm not talking about their handguns. Like, we got the rifles. They're out and they're searching the store. And like, you need to lock the store. You need to get in the back. Active shooter situation. So I'm doing this at like 18 years old. I'm like, text my mom, don't worry, everything's okay. There's just a shooter in the mall. As a mother now, oh my God, the heart failure I would feel. She hates my that's okay messages. And then, yeah, we did end up hearing shots, but it was because they were shooting at the police. Nobody got killed. Nobody got hurt. That's wonderful. And I got escorted out. Actually, I think I got escorted out by SWAT. There's SWAT on the roof, but they were taking people out. And then there was my mother and my two grandparents, may they rest in peace, across the street waiting to receive me into open arms. All was well. But that was a pretty rough first week as a shift leader, if I do say so myself.
Well, you came out alive.
Totally.
Which is great.
And then went through it again a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we did go through an active shooter situation. Well,
with kids. Yay.
Yeah. We'll discuss that at maybe another time. I will say this real quickly. I really enjoy listening to people tell a story that I've already heard because, like, I didn't know if this time you're going to like disarm the person yourself. You know how they get bigger? They get bigger as you get older.
I don't think this one got bigger. I've
no. That was pretty. That was pretty much how you've told it. So
yeah,
good for you. Good for you. But
Seared
as you get older, like when you listen to. No, I'm not going to make fun of our dads. Okay, never mind.
They're listening and they're not happy with you already.
I'm just saying the older you get, the better you were. And I'm not saying that as involving our fathers in any way. I'm just saying that is a saying. Okay. So, but here's where we need to address something important now, going back to the story. And honestly, earmuffs. Content warning. This is the darkest part of the family story, I believe, even before the murders occur.
It's, I don't even want to say it. If you had to guess, you'd probably guess it. It's the incest.
Yep.
I feel like I have to whisper that.
This wasn't a rumor. And damn it, I told you, if you can't laugh at this story, you're going to start losing faith. And we need the alms, so laugh. So this was documented. In 1915, Andreas Gruber and his daughter Victoria were actually charged and convicted of incest. Yes, it is a crime. For both parties, apparently. So Andreas served a year in prison. Victoria got a month. Now, how she got any jail time is so laughably dark that, again, keep laughing because, So it was an open secret in the community. Neighbors testified that Andreas was extremely possessive of his daughter and that the relationship had been going on for years. There, I said it.
Yep. And this is where little Joseph's paternity becomes a question. He was born in September 1919. Now remember, this is 4 years after Victoria's husband died in the war. The father was either Andreas, which is horrifying, or a neighbor named Lorenz Schlittenbauer, who Victoria had had an affair with around 1918. We really vote for old Lorenz, but as Maury has taught us, nothing is a certainty, and those paternity tests are very questionable.
Yeah, and they say two wrongs don't make a right, but please, I love the affair in this case as a good answer. So Schlittenbauer, he's actually going to become very important to the story, so stick around because on this episode of Young and the Restless, it's just starting. So he claimed he was Joseph's father. Then he denied it when the incest allegations came out, which I guess is understandable. But then he decided he wanted to claim it again. This was a whole horrible mess. Key thing here is that Andreas had forbidden Victoria from marrying Schlittenbauer to keep her at the farm,
Victoria once told Schlittenbauer, and I'm quoting here, "It's better that I'm pregnant by father, otherwise he would beat me to death." And that gives you a sense of what her life was like and where sympathies may lie when this is all told. Because F this guy and the strudel he rode in on.
Is strudel actually Bavarian?
I think it may be more tied to Austria, but close enough. And either way, if I can be condescending to this man, then strudel, pretzels, whatever he rode in on, he can ride back to hell.
That's right, buddy.
So we have an abusive, controlling patriarch, an incestuous household situation, a daughter essentially trapped in a nightmare, and a community that knew about all of it, but mostly just avoided the Grubers. I get it. The family had enemies. This family had secrets. This family was a power keg and someone lit the fuse.
Now, we need to talk about the weeks leading up to March 31st, 1922, because this is where the story goes from a dark family trauma to full-on horror movie. So 6 months before the murders, the Gruber's maid quits. Her name is Kathryn Rieger. And when people asked her why she left, her answer was wild. To them, I should say, because she lived there. She said the house was haunted. Specifically, she said she kept hearing footsteps in the attic, maybe some voices. She had this constant feeling of being watched. She told people that this farm gave her chills. And you know what? She couldn't take it anymore. Now, she is a wise woman, if a little slow on the uptake.
And here's the thing. She wasn't wrong about being watched. She just had the wrong supernatural explanation.
You know why, Kathryn?
Tell me.
Because someone was probably up there. And it wasn't a ghost, probably. It was a person living in the attic. It was watching this family through the floorboards. It was eating their food when they weren't watching. It was observing. It was listening. It was waiting. It was probably taking notes.
Gross.
Now, I just want to pause and say, this is important. If you ever hear unexplained footsteps in your attic and your maid says the house is haunted, believe the maid. Check the attic. Or maybe don't. Call the police. Or maybe do that while you're hauling ass down the road. Move to a hotel. Maybe buy a gun. Maybe buy 2 guns. Have the place sprayed for termites. And if this termite guy makes it out alive,
wow,
then maybe you can move back in. Or do all of the above. You do literally anything other than what Andreas Gruber did, which was jack shit.
I just want to know, what did the termite guy ever do to you?
I mean, you're paying him.
Wow. All right. So in March 1922, the strange occurrences escalated. Andreas found a newspaper in the house that none of them had bought, a Munich newspaper. Nobody in the family had been to Munich. Nobody in the area subscribed to it. He assumed the postman had made a mistake, but that actually was not the case. Then the keys went missing. The family had 2 sets of house keys, and one set just vanished, gone, never found.
Which would not be a surprise in this household, Kathryn.
No, not at all. But if people just put it back where it belongs, that would be helpful. And then, just days before the murders, Andreas noticed something that should have been his biggest red flag in a long line of red flags. So many red flags that a crazy ex-girlfriend almost manifested it into existence. This red flag, he found fresh footprints in the snow leading from the forest edge directly to the farm's machine room. The lock on the door was broken. And guess what, guys? There were no footprints leading back.
Which means something had walked out of those woods, entered his property, and as far as the story that snow tells, never left.
Sasquatch.
I wish it was, because that same night, the family heard footsteps in the attic again, and just another night. Now, they actually told Andreas, and I had imagined they were like, "Sir, get up there and actually look." And guess what? He did, and he found nothing, or at least he didn't find anyone, but evidence suggests that someone was probably hiding up there when he did check, and maybe they just stayed very still, or as I posit, maybe he knew something was there. Maybe he just didn't say anything to the family when he came back. Maybe he was terrified to do so. Maybe whatever was in there scared him so badly that he just went back and lied. Andreas told his neighbors about all of this, and a neighbor, being a reasonable human being, offered to lend him a gun. Andreas refused because of things, I guess.
Why? What things?
Well, that's a good question to a really stupid situation, and sometimes you can't explain stupid.
No, you can't.
Some historians think he was just stubborn. Others say he may have known who was in the house, or he had some idea. He just thought he could handle it himself. Maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he thought it was someone he owed money to, or someone connected to Victoria. Maybe all that incest had gotten to his brain. Hopefully like an incest cancer, his own form of cancer.
Ugh. Or maybe he just made the worst decision of his life, which, given what we know about Andreas, is saying something, as his whole life seemed to be a series of really bad decisions.
Yeah, he's like the Lemony Snicket of incest.
Wow. Okay.
Another detail that came out later According to a school friend of little Cecilia, she's a granddaughter, Victoria ran from the farmhouse the night before the murders. She had apparently a violent argument with good old Andreas and just jetted off to the forest. Apparently, she was petrified that someone was watching her and chasing her, and she probably was very, very right.
So the family spent hours searching for her in the woods that night. They did find her eventually, and little Cecilia told her school friend she was exhausted the next day. She had even fallen asleep in class because they'd been up all night looking for her mother.
Which I'm sure was a fun night for this little girl. So Victoria knew something was wrong. She may have even known who or what was watching them. And whatever it was scared her so badly that she just decided to run into the forest in the middle of the night in her undergarments. Something made her just up and abandon everything, including, we should mention, her daughter and son, because she thought that this thing's friendly days was probably now over. This thing or this person.
That afternoon of March 31st, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived. Her sister escorted her to the farm and left her after a short visit. The sister was likely the last person to see anyone at Hinterkaifeck alive. And that, my friends, is what we in the show business call a climactic break.
Wait, we made it to the show, babe?
Well, no, but you know what? Yeah, we did.
Hell yeah. Okay, so big content warning for this section. For reals. We're going to talk about how the family was killed. We had to get there sometime. We'll keep it factual and not gratuitous, but this part sucks to retell unless you're that type of person who likes to hear this type of stuff. And if you are that person, hello, I know who you are, you deviant.
And they know who they are, so they should buckle up. So, sometime on the evening of March 31st, 1922, or possibly in the early hours of April 1st, all 6 people in the household were, well, again, it's that time in the story, they were murdered. The weapon was a mattock, which is like a pickaxe, but with one pointed end and one flat cutting end, if we want to be extremely specific. It was the Gruber's own tool from their own farm, so it is ironic in the, isn't it ironic, don't you think, Alanis Morissette way?
I like that. Good job.
Thanks.
Good job, Ike.
I have to sing in every episode, I think.
Based on the crime scene, investigators believe the murders happened in a very specific sequence. So 4 of the victims, Andreas, his wife, Cecilia, Victoria, and the 7-year-old Cecilia, were lured into the barn one by one and killed there. Their bodies were just found stacked up on top of each other, covered in some hay.
And the leading theory is that someone made a noise from the barn, maybe mimicked an animal in distress, maybe called out for help. Andreas went out first. Then his wife went probably looking for him. Then Victoria. And then the 7-year-old.
And little Cecilia's death was, again, particularly tragic, of course. I definitely pontified that quite a bit.
Yeah, truly. It is always so sad to lose someone so young.
And soon we lost the other. Her brother and the maid died in the house, killed by this thing or person.
The other 2 victims, Maria the maid, probably heard the commotion and came to check it out.
Now, the killer or killers, because some suggest there may have been more than one person, showed zero hesitation. All 6 victims were bludgeoned to death with a mattock. There was no robbery. There was a bunch of money that was just later found unmolested in the house. Whatever the motive was, it wasn't financial. It seemed to be purely bloodlust. It's a crime of passion, but I mean, most crime of passions don't involve that much foreplay. We're talking about months here.
Yeah. And then came the strangest part of an already strange case. After murdering 6 people, the killer or the thing didn't leave. They stayed.
This is a detail that really elevates this to pure and absolute nightmare fuel. For at least 3 days after the killing, possibly longer, someone continued living there with 6 bodies, just there like a really dark version of an episode of Hoarders. I'm glad you could laugh at the darkness.
Just got a visual. So neighbors reported seeing smoke coming from the farmhouse chimney on April 1st and 2nd. So someone was heating the house. The animals, the cows, the pigs, the dog, were all fed and tended to during this time. Food was eaten from the kitchen. Business as usual, like the person was finally relieved to have the full roofs of the house. A calendar in the house showed the date had been changed to April 1st, which is truly a bizarre detail. I mean, the killer wanted to make sure the calendar was up to date. The bed in the master bedroom showed signs of being slept in. So whoever killed these people made themselves at home afterward again. Like, finally, after watching for so long, they got to do the things they had always wanted to do. They just had to murder a whole family to get to it.
On April 1st, the night after the murders, an artisan named Michael Polkel was passing by. He said he noticed smoke from the chimney, and as he walked by, someone came out of the house and shined a lantern in his face like an old man on his lawn and shooed him away. So he just quickly continued on his way. Polkel also reported that the smoke had a revolting smell, which let's not think too hard about what might have been burning, but it probably wasn't.
Now, guys, this testimony should have been huge for investigators. Someone saw the killer. But Polkel's report was apparently never fully investigated. No examination of the oven was conducted, and this is going to be a theme. The investigation was botched from the start. During those days, several people actually visited the farm. 2 coffee salesmen came by. A machine repairman stopped in. The postman noticed that the mail he delivered the previous day was still there, untouched, also not uncommon for a lot of people. But everyone assumed the family was just busy, out. Nobody investigated further. I mean, guys, they were a weird family, remember? I'm sure nothing surprised those local to them. I mean, they had a whole incest polygamy thing going on.
Yeah, and I'm sure we all have had those neighbors where we're like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need to check on them, but this family probably took the cake.
We have some now.
Well, exactly. Sometimes people just need to be left alone, okay?
It's true.
Now, it wasn't until April 4th that anyone even got concerned. Again, weird family. Little Cecilia had missed school. The family hadn't shown up to church. Mail was piling up at the post office. A neighbor named Lorenz Schlittenbauer, remember him?
Yep.
He sent his teenage son and stepson to check on the family. They came back and they were like, we can't find anyone. So Schlittenbauer himself went back, along with 2 other men, Michael Pohl and Jacob Sigel. They had to break through a gate to enter the barn because all the doors were locked. And there in the barn is where they found the bodies. And I'm sure they never got the therapy they needed afterwards.
Definitely not. Andreas, Casilia Sr., Victoria, and little Casilia stacked on top of each other, covered in straw.
Now, Schlittenbauer then did something extremely strange, and I think you'll agree. According to other men, he somehow just had a key to the front door of the house. So it was like all that breaking through that fence, this key would have come in handy. So he enters alone, and he is the one who finds Maria and the toddler inside.
Okay, wait. How did he have a key?
Well, exactly. You remember those missing keys in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
This becomes one of the reasons why Schlittenbauer was a prime suspect.
Mm-hmm.
His behavior after finding the bodies was also extremely weird. He moved the corpses around. He touched things.
Ew.
He apparently gave tours to curious onlookers who had gathered around the farm. By the time the police arrived from Munich, and this is not until like 1:30 in the morning the next day, the crime scene was completely contaminated. This guy was so suspicious. This is like the I didn't have sexual relations with that woman suspicious.
Okay, Bill.
The police actually decided to wait. Now, listen to this. They decided to wait until dawn to investigate because it was dark. Because flashlights are apparently too expensive in Bavaria. When they arrived finally at 5:30 in the morning, they found Schlittenbauer still there. He was watching over the farm, they describe almost obsessively because he seemingly wanted to get caught. I don't know, but let's talk about the investigation. As you can tell, it went extremely swimmingly.
Yeah. So the investigation. Let me tell you about all the ways this got messed up.
Okay, let's do it.
Inspector George Reingruber from Munich led the investigation. But by the time he arrived, dozens of people had trampled through the crime scenes like it was the running of the bulls. Evidence had been moved. People had touched the bodies. Someone had even cooked meals in the kitchen. Any forensic evidence was essentially useless. Someone cooked food in the gosh darn kitchen. Who does that? And this was 1922, so forensic science was in its infancy. They didn't have DNA testing or fingerprint databases or luminol, any of it. Their main investigative technique was asking questions and then kind of hoping someone confess, and just kind of taking people's word for it. The autopsy was performed in the barn, the literal crime scene, by a court physician named Johann Baptist Müller. He confirmed the mattock was the likely murder weapon based on the shape of the wounds. All victims had severe head trauma. And then, I cannot stress how wild this is, they removed the heads of the victims and sent them to Munich because apparently Frankenstein needed supplies.
No, but really, let me tell you why. You ready for it?
Ready.
I mean, it's obvious, really, for the clairvoyance.
Which seems suspicious in itself, but hey, that's their forensics.
Yeah. For psychics, they sent the skulls to Munich so that clairvoyants could examine them and try to divine a metaphysical clue about the murderer. They figured that if no one confessed, as they were hoping, the actual investigation part of this was, done. So supernatural was the obvious next step.
1922 was a different time.
Yes, and spoiler alert, guess what? Not surprisingly, the psychics didn't solve the damn case.
You don't say.
No, but the skulls were kept in Munich, and during World War II, they were lost, which, understandable, it was a little busy over there during that time. So the Gruber family was eventually buried in Weidhofen Cemetery without their heads, which just really seems to add that wonderful macabre cherry on top of this whole story.
Yeah, that's just so disrespectful, but I'm going to be honest. I thought you were going to say they were in a museum when we were first doing this, so I don't know. I guess this is less disrespectful, but even in death, this family just could not catch a break.
Yes, and the farm was demolished in 1923 because neighbors couldn't bear the reminder, which, fair enough.
For sure.
I would have done it the next day if my name wasn't Forrest Gump. But it's also not like the investigators seemed to need any of this evidence or seemingly wanted it. And during the demolition, guess what they found in the attic?
The murder weapon?
Bingo, the mattock. And it had been hidden up there the whole time. Now, why it took them this long to look at the attic is just like another accoutrement to this complete fuck up of an investigation. They also found food scraps in the attic and that evidence that tiles had been removed from the floor. Again, probably so someone could watch the family below like it's this twisted sitcom without a laugh track.
You need the laugh track, otherwise it is twisted. So the maid was right. Someone was living in the attic, probably for months before the murders.
So the investigation, they questioned over 100 suspects throughout the years. Now, honestly, it seems like they probably did this so they could seem like they tried at all. The case was officially closed in 1955, but interrogations continued all the way up until 1986, where they finally had DNA evidence. But guess what? They didn't have anything to DNA. So when the lead investigator finally retired, it shut down. They found nothing. There's no confession. There's no arrest. There's no conviction until, well, we'll get to our final theory. So stay tuned for the next episode of The Young and Restless because there's still one suspect to go. And let's just say some dead man can still kill.
All right. So let's talk suspects because there are some juicy ones.
Number one suspect for any conscious and mortal human being, Lorenz Schlittenbauer.
The neighbor, Victoria's former lover, possible father of her youngest child, the guy who found the bodies, somehow had a key to the locked house, moved evidence around, and stood guard at the house for hours. Pretty much acted as guilty as possible. The case against him goes like this. He was fucking more suspicious than forgotten deli meat. But to quantify this, Schlittenbauer had a relationship with Victoria that Andreas forced her to end. He may have been the father of Joseph, which meant child support payments. And at the time of the murders, he was in financial trouble and already supporting another family.
So witnesses reportedly saw Schlittenbauer and Victoria arguing about this paternity and the money as recently as the day before the murders. And she was probably all like, "It's your baby, Schlitten. His chin looks just like yours." No, his behavior after finding the bodies was extremely suspicious, as we've covered. He knew where everything was. He had a key. He wasn't even remotely surprised or seemingly disturbed by anything he found. When the other men saw the corpses, they were utterly horrified. Schlittenbauer just started organizing things.
Like tours?
I would have arrested this dude on the spot.
Yeah, but here's why he was never arrested. First, Schlittenbauer had severe asthma, and this was dead ass used by investigators as a reason to explain that he physically could not manage to beat 6 people to death with a mattock. Let the court show that my client can only swing this deadly weapon 5 times and not 6 before his breathing acts up. If the man ain't fit, you must acquit. Second, He had no obvious absence from his own home during the time of the murders. His wife and family could account for him. And third, he was never definitively placed at the scene. Pretty great when you have an old-timey farm wife to lie for you. You think she wanted the mattock next? No.
He did actually successfully sue several people. Now, this is well after it, but he sued several people who publicly accused him of being the murderer, which just goes to show you that, and I know this is going to surprise everyone, but law enforcement, like the legal system, is sometimes just pure and utter bullshit.
True. Ready? This one's my favorite. Suspect number 2, Carl Gabriel, Victoria's supposedly dead husband.
Now, this is definitely a wild card theory. So Carl was reported killed in action in France in December of 1914 during World War I, but his body was never officially recovered, which led to speculation that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't actually dead. Now, one can remember that World War I, and I guess like most wars, but maybe more than most, was a complete and utter fuck up. So someone may have falsely believed him dead.
Exactly. So the theory goes Carl survived the war, returned home secretly, and then discovered the incest situation with his wife and her father, saw that his daughter had a half-brother who might also be her father's son, and then just snapped. You can imagine the shock. I mean, never mind, you absolutely couldn't fathom the shit show that family had become in his absence. And then adding to what was surely, quote unquote, shell shock, if he was alive, he was surely in a bad state.
There's even a strange post-war account. After World War II ended, some German prisoners of war from the region claimed that they had been released early by the German-speaking Soviet officer who said he was the Hinterkaifeck murderer. If their account is to be believed, obviously the implication here is truly nuts. Also, that this dude fought in both world wars like some vengeful Criterion ghosts that haunted the battlefields.
That's bizarre.
Extremely. And some theorize that this could have been Carl, who may have wanted to flee to the Soviet Union after the killings. But soldiers who served with Carl in World War I testified, that they saw his dead body on the battlefield. They even described the injuries in detail. So this theory is most likely considered debunked, though it's never been definitively disproven. But it kind of makes sense, right?
Well, it does, because how many stories have you heard about people pretending to be dead? I mean, I was just watching one of my shows like I do. It was like a CIA Unclassified, and this person, it was a hijacking, was shot off the plane, and she laid there for 24 hours pretending to be dead because somebody else tried to do that and then showed that they weren't dead, and then they did get dead. So I'm just saying, people do this.
Well, and back then, all she would have had to do is like somehow made sure that her dog tags got taken off of her, and then like that's it. She's dead forever.
Well, this girl wasn't in the military. She was just on a flight that was hijacked. But yes, I get your point.
Yes.
So for me, that's my theory that I'm into. But this does bring us to the possibility of what they think is the most likely suspect. Suspect number 3, the Bischler brothers.
Anton and Adolf. So Anton and Adolf Bischler were former farmhands who had worked at the Hinterkaifeck. They knew the property well, and their sister, if you remember her, Crescence Rieger, she was a maid who quit because the house was supposedly haunted.
Yeah, and on her deathbed, Crescence made a confession to a priest. She said she believed her brothers had committed the murders. She claimed she had tried to tell the police before, but no one listened.
Now, whether she got stitches after that, no. When this came to light, Anton was briefly taken into custody. But Adolf, well, he had died in 1944 during World War II, which was the same year that I think a less famous Adolf met his demise. Now, we could probably do another pod on that Adolf, but to be honest, I mean, how much real evidence is there to talk about?
Boo.
So, without any physical evidence and Anton maintaining his innocence, he was just released and the case was dropped.
And there's also a more recent theory from a true crime researcher named Bill James. Yes, the baseball statistics guy who also writes about crime. He proposed a man named Carl Mueller, who was suspected in a similar family massacre in Massachusetts in 1898. Mueller allegedly killed dozens of people across multiple states before disappearing around, get this, 1912.
Okay, and it's an interesting theory. The Hinterkaifeck murders, do bear similarities to Mueller's suspected crimes. So they're all isolated family homes. There was a blunt farm tool as a weapon. Bodies were moved and stacked. There was no robberies. I mean, I'm going to be honest, that is a lot of coincidences.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence Mueller was even in Germany, which, you know, that's a pretty big fact to this whole case. And James himself says it's more or less a toss-up.
And in 2007, something interesting happened. Students at the Fürstenfeldbruck Police Academy in Germany took on the Hinterkaifeck murders as a cold case project.
15 students applied modern investigative techniques to the original case files. So they looked through the hundreds of pages of documents that were preserved in the Bavarian State Archives. They examined the evidence. They reanalyzed witness statements. They tried to approach the case with fresh eyes as if they were doing this in 2007.
And
they concluded that the case was essentially unsolvable. Dun, dun, dun. So too much time had passed. Too much evidence was lost. The key suspects had died. The original crime scene was obviously hopelessly contaminated.
But here's the interesting part. They did settle on a prime suspect. They developed a theory about who committed the murders and why.
And they refused to name the suspect or even share the theory publicly.
It's maddening. Why?
So they cited respect for the living descendants of the people connected to the case. Some of these suspects' grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they're still alive in Bavaria. The students and instructors felt it would be completely irresponsible to publicly accuse someone's ancestors of mass murder based on a theory that can never be proven in court.
You know, I mean, I respect that, but also it is incredibly frustrating. So I'm torn. If it could be therapeutic for whatever extended family there was, I think they're handling it the wrong way.
Well, and I completely agree. And most true crime scholars also just assume the suspect was Lorenz Schlittenbauer as being the most likely. He fits the profile the best, as we've talked about, but we'll probably never know for sure. And if we do know, they decided no one's going to know about it.
The Academy also confirmed something important. If this crime happened today, it would probably be solvable. DNA evidence from whoever stayed in the house afterward, modern forensics on the mattock, cell phone records, security cameras, any of it would likely crack the case.
And I mean, I of course agree. I think any crime now is solvable, but in 1922 with a contaminated crime scene and psychics examining skulls instead of forensic scientists, I mean, this killer had literally every advantage. This is a Dumb and Dumber version of an investigation. And just when you thought they couldn't get any dumber, they never, ever rid themselves.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered the facts and the suspects. Let's talk about what we think actually happened.
First, let me say, this wasn't a random crime. Nothing about this suggests a robbery gone wrong or some random wandering killer who happened upon this isolated farm. This was personal. Though that can be debated and has been, I just don't buy that this is some outside random.
Yeah, I agree. The killer knew the property intimately. They had been living in the attic or nearby for potentially months before the attack. They knew when to lure people to the barn. They knew the layout of the house. They had the keys. They may have planned for months or years. I mean, certainly Lady Fate had decided long ago that a sick human would end up in that attic.
Oh, Lady Fate, you mistress of death. No.
Wow.
The most likely scenario, and this is not just my most likely scenario, but based on the evidence, it's that the killer was someone with a personal connection to the family. It was probably related to the incest situation or this disputed paternity of Joseph, because this guy didn't seem like the most popular of fellows. Honestly, it is doubtful anyone liked this dude, and I'm talking about Andreas. I don't like this dude, and I don't even know him.
I'd have to bet I'd put my money on Schlittenbauer, though. I do think the husband theory is good. The relationship with Victoria, the child support debate, the fact that he had a key, his strange behavior at the crime scene, it really does all kind of point to him. Maybe not acting alone, maybe with help. That's where the dead husband comes in.
Well, you want to hear another really dark alternative theory?
I mean, yeah.
Obviously. Some researchers have suggested that maybe it's Andreas who killed most of the family, and then someone else, possibly Schlittenbauer, killed Andreas when he saw it.
All right. I'm into the theory, not, the murder, but somehow it does make it a little more palatable. Like Andreas snapped and killed his wife and daughter, and then someone came in and finished him off.
Well, I mean, it would explain why he didn't accept help from the neighbors or report the strange occurrences to the police. If he was planning something, he certainly wouldn't want people snooping around. And it would explain why someone stayed afterwards, maybe to make sure the job was done or to stage the scene.
I mean, it's incredibly dark, but, given what we know about Andreas.
Yeah, nothing's impossible with this guy, but we'll never know for sure. The evidence is gone. The suspects, they're all dead. All we have are theories and questions and more questions, and some people will find this extremely unsatisfying. This case has no answer. There was all that buildup for, throws his arm up in the air. We don't really know. I know who looks like the most logical choice, and that was the maybe father of Joseph, sometime lover of his mother, who was also seeing another guy at the same time, but that guy was her father. And oh my God, saying this is like noise pollution to the souls of every man and woman living and dead.
That kind of hurt my head to follow. So why does this case from over 100 years ago still captivate people?
I think as it hits every nerve, it got that isolating setting and that creepy buildup, the obviously brutal violence, the maddening lack of resolution. It's a real life horror story that also includes characters that honestly may have well been made up. Honestly, whether or not you can pin this on one individual or you can pin this on multiple individuals, there is this grime and evil that is pervasive and tangible. It's suffocating.
I mean, the footprints in the snow leading to the house but not away, that image is seared into true crime history. It's been referenced in countless books, movies, and TV shows.
So let's go over a few of those. In 2006, German author Andrea Maria Schenkel published a novel called Tanad, which is a fictionalized version of the Hinterkaifeck murders. She changed the names and the setting, but the story is unmistakably inspired by the case. And that thing sold over 1 million copies. It's been translated into 20 languages. It was adapted into a film in 2009. Cash in, she said. This story sells itself.
Wow. There have been documentaries, plays, radio programs. In 1991, a play called Hinterkaifeck, Germany's Most Mysterious Murder Case, was produced. There's been continuous media coverage in Germany for decades. There is an Amazon Prime show called Lore with an episode all on this crime.
And guess what? The internet.
For sure.
Yeah, the internet Hinterkaifeck has become one of the most discussed cold cases in all the true crime communities. So I guess we're basic bitches over here
I'm
covering
fine with
it.
that. We are.
But we had to give our 2 cents and, try to insert a bad joke. But more than that, honestly, it captivated our attentions before we even knew this was like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shoot, like all things, there's a whole subreddit dedicated to this. Amateur armchair detectives around the world have spent an unfathomable amount of hours trying to solve this case.
Correct. The case also had an impact on forensic science in a backward kind of way. The failures of the original investigation, the contaminated crime scene, the lack of proper protocols, the reliance on physics, highlighted everything that could go wrong. It became a case study in how not to handle a murder investigation. I mean, how bad does an investigation have to be the model child for terrible investigators? They were over their heads from the start. It didn't help that they didn't take control over the crime scene in any timely manner. By the time they got there, people were all but dancing on these people's dead bodies.
Ain't that the truth? Today, there's a memorial near where the farm used to stand, and it's honoring the victims. The 6 bodies are buried in Weidhofen, though, as we mentioned, without their skulls. I vote personally that only 5 of these bodies be remembered because Andreas can go, somewhere that rhymes with tell and smell.
It's a reminder that somewhere, at some point, someone got away with murdering 6 people, including children, and may have lived out the rest of their life peacefully, never facing justice.
And that's the real horror of unsolved cases, I think. It's not the mystery, it's the injustice, it's how unfair it all is. It's this cosmic joke about the duality of man.
So, that's the Hinterkaifeck murders. Germany, 1922. 6 victims, 0 convictions, over a century of mystery.
If you've got theories about who did it, we do actually want to hear them. The case has been analyzed for over 100 years and we still don't have the answers. There's obviously countless theories, did not have time to go over, but I do think we hit on the most probable of them. But who really, really knows? There are wild cards out there that may have surprised, I don't know, even the devil. When dead men can kill, or when a house of such sin, I'm not a preacher or anything. I just can't get over the father. When a house like that can exist, when murdering 6 people seems reasonable to you, anything goes. The existence of reality, honestly, it becomes thin.
So drop us a comment. Hit us up on social media. We are at Mugshot Mysteries Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. So let's talk about it.
And if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and rate and review whatever you get your podcasts. It does really help more people find us. And we'd love that, honestly. If we can give you some intrigue, if we can give you a little chuckle, if we can introduce you to something you've never heard before, then we consider it worth it and a job done.
Until next time, I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Gabriel.
Stay safe out there.
And maybe check your attic for murderers, just to cover your bases.
So, as always, Gabriel, what have we learned today?
We have learned that some stories need to be told, but may make you want to gouge your own ears out. That strudel is actually most likely Austrian and not Bavarian. That I have been thinking of the Hi Joe Kids, Hi Joe Wife guy the whole time I've been walking through the story. That I think this whole story is a good corollary for the reluctance we all have of facing something we're dreading doing. In this case, quite literally, if you have an evil presence in your attic, instead of business as usual, grab a gun or, a mattock and go confront it. And finally, we have learned that you can absolutely laugh at evil, because when you do, it loses its power over you and you don't freeze. You fight, that you don't back away, that you laugh in its goddamn face until you can't breathe and your belly aches.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass. We'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know. Stolen gem, a secret note, a shady figure in a trench coat. The clock is ticking, the plot gets thick. We'll crack this puzzle quick as a click. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail.